Hi everyone, this is Alexander Lim, and welcome to AuthorStory, where, on every episode, we speak to a different author on a particular topic of interest. On today's episode is Mia Tomikawa, who is speaking on behalf of Master Ryuho Okawa, author of The Strong Mind, The Art of Building the Inner Strength to Overcome Life's Difficulties. And you can check it out right now by clicking on the Amazon link in the video description below. As for Mia Tomikawa herself, she is the editor and spokesperson for Master Okawa and has been involved for several years now with Happy Science. So, Mia, welcome. It's great to have you with us again on Author Story. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Thank you. It's great to be on your show again. Thank you so much for having me on your show today again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Mia, let's get on to this. So, what was Master Okawa's intention behind writing, The Strong Mind?
Yes, I believe that he wrote this book basically to encourage everyone because we all go through many difficulties, painful experiences. We all wish that life is a succession of happy events, but
Mm-hmm.
we can avoid facing these difficulties, and so that's why he wanted to give us some hints as to how we can cultivate a stronger mind to overcome any difficulties that we may face in life.
Okay, okay. So, first off, about the strong mind, I've heard that there are some mental attitudes. I think there are five needed to create a strong mind. Can you give us a brief description of what these are?
Sure. The five to cultivate the strong mind, we have to rise above adversities that we face throughout the course of life.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, we have to face our difficulties as we go through each stage of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this book, he mentions several decades of our lives and what
Mm-hmm.
kind of difficulties that we may face.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the term that he uses in this book is fall 7 times, rise 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how we are likely to fall down on average of 7 times
Mm-hmm.
throughout our life, but we need to be prepared, or we need to be ready to rise 8 times, which is one extra time.
Mm-hmm.
And with that mindset, we can rise above adversities no matter what we face in life.
Okay. So, these adversities, I believe these are what Master Okawa calls life crises, and that these occur at particular points in our lives.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It starts with our childhood, and it's really usually about around age 10
Mm-hmm.
when we face our first setback. It could be school related issues, or it could happen in your family. It could be, a divorce, or, parents fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, we usually face our first setback around age 10, 10 or before 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then in our 20s, we start finding a job, and maybe we find our life partners, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when we tend to find the second major disappointment in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the list goes on
Okay.
until the 80s.
Wow, the 80s. Okay.
Yeah. And that's like the end of our life. And I think we need to be really, this is probably the most difficult time, because this is a period of time that we are most likely face death.
Mm-hmm.
And but he talks about how our mind or soul is something that we can take back with us
Mm-hmm.
to the other world, even after death.
Mm-hmm.
So by cultivating a stronger mind through these various experiences, we have nothing to lose. So we don't have to really worry about losing anything, even if we had to go through many difficulties throughout our lives.
Okay. So I believe Master Okawa says there are stages of growth. I mean, this is inevitable given that we are all people. We inevitably grow. But he mentioned some stages of growth that are present for one's character.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, that's based on Eastern philosophy, I think he
Mm-hmm.
talks about three different stages, and the first stage is usually we develop this mindset when we are young,
Mm-hmm.
and it is to become a very sharp, intelligent, and capable person, and that's usually how we kind of become successful in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the first stage of a character that we want to build.
Mm-hmm.
And the second stage of character that we want to build next is to become more dynamic, and this is
Mm-hmm.
the mindset we need to become a leader, because as we grow older and as we accumulate experiences, we tend to be in a position where we need to work with other people and guide others. So
Mm-hmm.
cultivating more bold, dynamic, and higher mindset is the second stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the third stage that you want to develop is to become calmer, quiet, and more profound.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow older, as he said, we will have to face many difficulties, and sometimes there are no solutions, and that's when we have to really become silent and cultivate deep wisdom and
Mm-hmm.
unshakable mind to withstand any difficulties. And that's the final and third stage of character that we want to build.
Wow. Okay. So these are sort of like a progression then from being sharp and then becoming flexible and then finally having that inner wisdom.
Exactly.
Okay. Would you? I'm sure a lot of listeners will be wondering about this, but would you know how long it takes to get
So
that
it
third level?
takes 80 years
Oh,
on
okay. All
average.
right.
Some people never get to the end, but yeah, he's talking about how we're supposed to be going up these stages within our lifetime. So it
Mm-hmm.
takes about 70 to 80 years. So
Oh,
maybe 20 to 30 years per stage.
oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
So, okay, that is an entire lifetime then.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. So, to create a strong mind, what is necessary for people to create strong mind?
I think first they have to start believing in themselves. I think in this book he talks about having faith in
Mm-hmm.
yourself is
Mm-hmm.
really important, because without believing that you have the inner strength or you're really strong inside, you can't really believe that a new path will open up before you. And if you don't believe that a new path will open up before you, you'll never make efforts or try to change your life. So I think in order to cultivate a strong mind, first I think we have to believe that we have a mind and we can strengthen our minds by trying.
Mm, okay, okay. And how would we go? Now, I'm sure that the book goes into how we can strengthen our mind, but can you go into a few things like how one or two examples of how or I know techniques or principles on how people can strengthen their mind?
Well, yeah, sure. I think strengthening your mind is kind of abstract, so it's kind of hard to
Yes,
tell,
yes, it
how to
is. It
go about
is.
doing it.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting how he talks about many different aspects of life. And the first, he talks about we have to be more courageous, so we have to build courage. And he talks about his father, how
Go ahead.
he overcame his difficulties and hardships, and how he learned from him about building courage. So courage is one part of something that you can take to build a strong mind. And another aspect that he talks about is forgiveness. And I think it's really interesting how he talks about forgiveness in cultivating a stronger mind. I don't think you really see the relationship at first hand, but um, he talks about how it's important for you to let go of any resentment and unforgiving heart, because once you do that, you will never be able to find happiness. And because you have to, as long as you hold grudge or resentment against other people,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to torment you for having that kind of feeling inside you. So I think he talks about how truly strong people really have the strength to forgive other people. So I think that's interesting aspect of a strong mind. And he also talks about responsibility, about how we should take responsibility for our lives. You know, I think that's another key to finding happiness in life, because as long as we blame other people or circumstances for our own happiness, we're not really taking responsibility for our own lives. And I think he talks about how we need to cultivate a stronger mind so that we can really be responsible for what happens to our life, to our individual life, and even things around us too. So these are some of the points that he talks about in this book.
Okay, okay. Now it's interesting you bring up courage because courage, when you talk about courage, you also talk about its inverse, which is fear. And it's it's kind of hard to be courageous when one is fearful. What was I gonna say? Yeah, how does fear? How can how do I put this? No, it's essentially like we fear doing something wrong. Yeah, that's it. Make a mistake. We fear
Hmm.
making a mistake.
Hmm.
This how does this impact creating a strong mind?
Yes, I think we all have the fear of failing or failure or making mistakes. And I think that happens when we want to pro protect ourselves. We
Mm-hmm,
want to avoid being embarrassed, and that's why we want to protect our own ego, I think.
mm-hmm,
But if you want to overcome this fear, I think Master Okawa introduces this principle or way of thinking, which is invincible thinking.
mm-hmm,
And he talks about how as long as we learn from our mistakes and failures and make them seeds for our next success, they will not remain as failures or mistakes. They will be our experiences or wisdom, or what we learn from these experiences. So in our memory, they don't remain as failures or mistakes. So that's how we can turn our mistakes and failures into seeds of success. And once we can do that, we'll never be able to, we should never, have fear for failures or mistakes.
Okay, so that's an interesting viewpoint because I mean, when people think of a mistake, they think of something it's something bad,
Hmm.
or it's something to be avoided. But
Hmm.
in the according to Master Akawa, this really isn't so, is it?
Right, that's true. And I think he often talks about Thomas Edison, how he failed so many times, but
Mm-hmm.
he never said that was a failure. He always said that was what he learned, that this didn't work, but he never said that was a mistake or failure. And that's the kind of mindset we need if you want to overcome any fear of mistakes or failures.
Okay, so mistakes and failures, these are essentially challenges in life then. So let me just throw up a theoretical question at you. What would happen to us, do you think, as human beings, or in Master Akawa's point of view, what do you think would happen to us as human beings if we had no challenges in life?
Oh, I think we'll never grow, or we'll never be able to improve ourselves. And
Mhm,
I think we'll never be able to find happiness, because I think growth
mhm,
brings us the most, precious feelings of happiness. If we stay the way we are forever, we'll never
mhm,
be able to feel happiness for, becoming better or changing ourselves, or even changing the world.
mhm.
So yeah, it's gonna be a really boring place to live, I think.
Okay, all right. So what I'm getting here is that it's the attitude to the challenges and the so-called failures that enable us to grow.
Mhm. Yes, I think one of the most interesting things about Masaoka's books is that he offers a new perspective on how we should see things,
Mm,
and if we see failures or mistakes as negative things that are happening to our lives, it's going to be very hard to
mm,
face any challenges. But if we see them as seeds of success or seeds of happiness, we'll be really excited and we'll be happy to face any challenges in life. So it's really about having a new perspective or seeing things from a higher perspective.
mm. Okay, okay, yeah, definitely. It's a new viewpoint. It's not
Mhm.
a commonly held viewpoint then.
Right, and it really helps to have this perspective in mind all the time as you live your life. If something happens to you that you thought was bad
Mm,
before, with a new perspective, you may see it as a seed of something new.
mm,
So I think it's really important to have this mindset all the time.
mm. Okay, yeah, okay, got it. So Mia, I just like to. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but I just like to touch on a little something. Childhood, essentially, because it's the foundation of adulthood.
Mhm.
I mean, it's known that the mechanisms, the coping mechanisms a child creates, are the ones they will carry with them as they become an adult. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious, do you have any idea how a child could best be brought up so that he or she can develop a strong mind to deal with the crisis that will come along in adulthood?
Mhm. I think in this book he actually talks about how parenting is an important point
Mm-hmm.
for growing a child to be a strong and responsible person. And I think when we are little, when we are children, we often feel really powerless because we can't really do anything on our own.
Mm-hmm.
But as parents, he says that it's really important for children to feel responsible for their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they will have a sense of duty and responsibility. And I think that when you compare kids in America and the children in Japan, I think American kids are much more responsible. They are much more independent. And Masu Okawa, when he wrote this book, he was writing for Japanese readers. So he talks
Mm-hmm.
a lot about how children become independent
Mm-hmm.
on the parents. But that's not really the case in America. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I suppose so. Yeah, definitely. American kids are more independent. I mean, I can't say I've had any experience with Japanese kids, so I'll take you at your word.
Right. Well, Japanese parents really take care of their children. They really decide which school they should go to, what kind of education they should receive. They are very caring, in a
Mm-hmm.
good way, but they sometimes spoil their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and their kids end up not taking responsibility. So I think he talks about how educating your children to be a responsible people is a really important key to building a basis for cultivating a strong mind in this book.
Mm, okay, okay, okay. I got that. All right. So, all right, I got that. So, I was just interested in a little concept that Master Okawa I think brought up in this book. I'm not sure he brought this book, but I think he did about how a person's accomplishments make that person more biased, more judgmental. That's the word I'm looking for. More judgmental. Um,
Mhm.
how does that impact a person?
Right. So I think when he talks about that, he was talking about how when you have your own strengths, you want to really count on your strengths, but you at the same time start judging people based on your strengths. And I think it's really important to really be accepting of other people's even flaws and weaknesses,
Mm,
because they can be their own gifts. And it's really wonderful that we have many different types of people in this world. And I think in this book, The Strong Mind, strength really means a lot of different things.
Yeah, that
And
seems to be coming out. Yeah.
yes, and he talks about how, like, really the strong people should be accepting of people's flaws and even weaknesses, and they should be really forgiving other people for any mistakes that they make,
Hmm.
and so that we have to be really careful not to judge other people based on our own capabilities or abilities or strengths, and that's what the person with a strong mind should be doing, and that's what he's saying in this book.
Mm, okay, so that's definitely a different take on strength. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us are used to thinking of strength as okay, this guy's very strong, and he's
Mhm.
seen as a strong person, but he may not be.
Mhm, mhm. Right. So in that sense, I think a strong mind is much deeper in its meaning, and also the mind, the word mind,
Hmm.
really in the Japanese language, it encompasses both the mind and heart and the soul. So
Mm.
it's really your whole being that he's talking about, not only your
Ah.
mindset or thoughts or feelings, but it's more like your own soul,
Hmm.
who you really are.
Okay, so this so-called, it's not strength. It's not just having a strong mind, and it's not just being physically strong. It's the
Mm,
entire package, so to speak.
exactly. So you have more like a strong soul that can really withstand anything, that can really embrace anything that happens to you or other people, and becoming, I think, also it means becoming a leader
Hmm.
of the who can lead and guide many people too.
Okay, okay, all right. Now, Master Kawa brought up, I think, another idea here. It's to give. I don't know, but it's sort of like to give commendation, to give due where things are due. Why would this be so important to creating a strong mind?
Yes, it's a spirit of commendation
Mm.
is a sign of a big-hearted person, he says.
Hmm.
And yes, big heartedness is part of the strong mind, and it's really essential to give praise to others, because that will really encourage others to develop their capabilities,
Hmm.
and it will also open their hearts to us. And it really takes courage sometimes to
Hmm.
praise others, if they are, especially if they're not really nice to us, or,
Oh
if
yeah,
they're your rivals.
right,
But,
right.
you will not lose anything by acknowledging and praising other people, and they'll become friends with you in the long run if you can really acknowledge their strengths and their capabilities, because I think a lot of people want to be acknowledged,
Hmm.
and they're looking for words of praise all the time. So he's saying, why don't you, if you're really a strong person, you should be able to give what they really need. And I think that's what he means about practicing the spirit of commendation.
Mm, okay. So this is, I mean, this is, this occurs to me as being rather hard to do. I mean, especially if someone has hurt you a lot. But
Hmm.
it also occurs to me as being something like touching the other, connecting with another person to their humanity. Is it something like that?
Yes, yes, and I think you brought up a really good point about how hard, difficult this practice is. And I think when you really think about, like, if you want to train your body, for example, if you want
Mm,
to be physically stronger, even, you go to a gym and you train your muscle, and it's
hmm.
really hard and it hurts, right? Your muscles
Right.
hurt. But
Yeah.
that's a really necessary process if you really want a stronger physical body. And it's the
Hmm.
same way with the mind. If you really want to train your mind and build a stronger mind, you have to really go through these difficulties. You have to
Okay.
train your muscles of your mind, and that's why he is recommending these difficult things for
Ah.
you.
Okay, so in other words, there's no shortcut to getting a strong mind.
Exactly, exactly. So the more you do, the stronger you'll be, and that works for your physical body as long as for your mind.
Okay, okay, I got that. Okay, so Mia, a strong as we've spoken, a strong mind is necessary to learn from and overcome the challenges that come through our ways throughout our lives. Now, let's say you came across someone who's presently undergoing a really powerful change in his or her life. It could be at any time period, and you
Mhm.
had only enough time to tell this person one thing about to meet that how to meet that challenge with a strong mind. What would be
Mhm.
that one thing you'd tell that person?
Wow. Okay, that's a very difficult question, but I'll give it
Mm,
a try.
okay, give it a shot.
Okay, I will say that you already have inner strength within you, and all you have to do is to cultivate it.
Mm,
And it starts with uh, realizing or believing that you can take control of your own life.
mm.
I think that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because I mean, a lot of people don't feel they're in control of their lives. I mean,
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah, okay, I got that. Okay, so Mia, in the last few minutes of this interview, are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share to inspire our listeners?
Well, sure, yes. I think the inner strength and the mental toughness is really essential to face or overcome any challenges that you may face.
Hmm.
But it's also important because in the end, I think what we cultivate inside us means the most for our lives. You know, what kind of, like, if someone asks you, who are you, what kind of life did you live, it's
Hmm.
really not the material things that define you, but it's really your inner qualities that define who you really are. So I think it's really important to switch or change our perspective to see how cultivating this inner self or your mind is an essential practice to living a meaningful and valuable life.
Okay, I got that. And of course, this is I mean, this is not there's no shortcut to this. I mean, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
this takes an entire lifetime to really master.
Yes, and in that sense, I think life is fair. The more you
Hmm.
do it, the better you'll be, and it's the same with your mind.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, it's definitely so. I mean, life is fair. That's pretty good. Okay, then. So, in closing, the book is The Strong Mind: The Art of Building the Inner Strength to Overcome Life's Difficulties. The author is Master Ryuho Okawa, and you can find this book on Amazon. So, Mia, thank you very much for being on Author Story. Otsukare-sama deshita.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, everyone, I invite you to check out The Strong Mind as well as to subscribe to our channel if you wish. Catch you all next time on Author Story Weekly Interviews with another interesting topic and another amazing author.